Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 5 buffs and nerfs which I desperately want with the next set of balance changes. So if I was Supercell, I'll definitely be making these types of changes. So before we jump into it, make sure you're using the create code. That'd be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. Okay, so starting off for the buffs for this video, starting off with, of course, Edgar. So Edgar is literally like the worst brawler inside of a game right now, especially in 3v3s and Showdown. Edgar can be somewhat okay because by the time you've found an opponent, right, you probably got your super, which is the obvious thing with Edgar is that you really struggle to get your super, really struggle to cycle it, even if you jump on top of an enemy. Sometimes I don't even cycle my super in time. So the big one, which everyone has been talking about right now, specifically on Reddit, I've seen a few videos on it as well, there could be a new trait coming to Edgar because on the Reddit post as well. I'll put it in the description just so you guys are aware of it, because I think it was a really cool post on Reddit, which big shout out to I think it was Kento who made this, but Danny actually replied to it and said they actually had some discussions about this within the office. So what I'm talking about is a new trait called evasion. So when an attack rarely misses Edgar's radius, Edgar gains like 20% of his super. I think 20% would be a little bit too much of a buff for Edgar, but somewhere around like 5%, 10%, it could be pretty nice, because Edgar's range is just so bad, and you don't really want to buff like how quickly you charge his super just naturally off of gunfights, else he's just going to be flying around the map so toxically, right? And that's one thing about Edgar, is that gotta be careful not to buff him too much, because we saw when Edgar was first released, Edgar just literally wrecked everyone in 1v1. It was so hard to come up with like a counter to him just because of how easy it was to get kills over and over again. But then you've also got this period of time right now where he's just unusable and really needs some love. So I think within the next, I don't know, 1 or 2 updates, we'll see a big rework to Edgar. Okay, so next up on the buff list, we have Nani. So this is more of a personal buff list, in the fact that like Nani isn't completely the worst brawler in the game, right? But it's definitely a brawler which is going down in the meta every like list I do. Like Nani's becoming worse and worse because other brawlers are just power creeping Nani too much, and with the addition of gears literally so long ago, it's just getting more easier to dodge Nani's supers, to just dodge her main attacks, because her main attacks are pretty hard to hit, right? So the main buffs I would actually have to Nani. So there's one of 2 problems. So for me, even in Shooting Star, which is Nani's best map, I feel like it's too easy to tank the Nani head. Like you've got so many brawlers that can have an escape mechanism, a gadget or something, so you either got to actually like buff the damage of the peep, so when it actually does finally hit, it will near enough like one shot so many different brawlers, or you just make it so Nani's main attack projectiles actually unload a little bit quicker, so it's a bit easier to hit the shots, or have a faster projectile speed. I just think something needs to be done with Nani to make her a little bit stronger, because she's definitely a high risk, high reward brawler. Used to see her pretty much everywhere, but now it's only really Shooting Star because of how easy it is just to avoid Nani's main attacks. Okay, so next up on the buff list, we have Meg. So Meg right now, even after the slight buff in the last set of balance changes, is still a really bad brawler. And specifically, I think Meg is one of the, I won't really say most boring legendaries, because of course there will be a few people that do enjoy playing Meg, but I've seen a couple of posts over the past few weeks where people just really don't enjoy playing Meg. She's a brawler, specifically in solo showdown as well, it takes so long to get your super, and then also like I don't actually think a super is actually that strong. Like easily in a 3v3 setting, like multiple people can focus onto you and you'll just get deleted instantly because you haven't got a fast movement speed. But as I said, in that base, in the first form, Meg is just terrible. So I think she actually needs a buff in that first form. So whether that's when you actually come out of the mech, you actually get more ammo. I remember this used to be one of the most OP things about her, but she's just terrible right now. She needs a little bit of love, especially in that base design. So I think just respawning, when you get out of that mech, respawning with maybe 2 pieces of ammo and kind of go from there, because I feel like just a slight changes of Meg actually make her like so meta, so I don't want to go overboard with these changes. Okay, so next up on the buff list, we have Eve. So Eve is a brawler which you guys probably straight away are like, no, I don't want Eve anywhere close to the meta, which I kind of agree with. I don't want Eve to be one of the best brawlers, right? Because that meta was just so toxic. She's pretty much good everywhere, but as I was saying, she does deserve a buff, right? Even though in the past she was so incredibly strong. So I think the main buff for her, again, don't want to go too overboard, but I think she needs addressing more so than most brawlers, because she hasn't really got any place in competitive right now. Barely anyone uses her. She only really usable on like Canal Grande, maybe out in the open. And I think the main problem is it takes so long to build up her super. Like, I think her super was incredibly overrated beforehand, right? I think the most annoying part was her star power. That has been nerfed to oblivion, really bad right now. So I think her super deserves a little bit more love. So that supercharge rate going from, I think it's 9 hits right now, maybe to 7 or 8, and then go from there, right? So we want to go slowly with the buffs with Eve, because right now she's literally one of the worst brawlers, but she used to be one of the best, so we want somewhere in between. Okay, and lastly for the brawlers which really deserve a buff with the next set of balance changes, it has to be Mr. P. So we talk about Mr. P quite a lot on the channel. He's always one of the most controversial brawlers within the metas, but right now he just plain sucks. He's so bad in the meta. People think he's underrated, but I just think he's straight trash, specifically since the introduction of gears as well. It's just a lot easier to like the longer range maps as well to dodge these briefcases, especially with any type of speed gear available. You can dodge it so easily, and even when it does hit you, it doesn't do hardly any damage. So the main one I would actually go towards is just increasing his damage on his briefcase. Seems pretty plain and simple, right? You don't really want to make his porters too toxic again, because that can literally counter everything, because removing Brawler's ammo is really OP. So I'll go down the damage department, see what it kind of does to him, because I don't know how you could actually buff him in his main attack, right? Again, like, his main attack is just so hard to hit. So whether you guys can come up with some better suggestions as to how to make his shots maybe a little bit more easier to hit at the longer ranges, I'll definitely look at the comments to see what you guys say about that. Okay, and firstly, moving on to the nerfs, and the first brawler by far who needs the biggest nerf has to be Sam. Sam's star power is insanely broken. So Adrian actually did a tweet on Twitter earlier today, and literally everyone was suggesting that Sam. So Adrian, if you guys didn't know, he's the guy that does the balance changes, and yeah, everyone was saying this star power because it's so obnoxious. There's so many scenarios where I've seen clips of his star power where people are just spamming the super against the wall and just infinitely healing. 30% is absolutely wild. So 100% toning this down to around 15%, honestly. Like, that's still quite a lot considering he's a tankier brawler. I don't think he needs any other nerfs, to be honest, just because I feel like he's still a tank, right? He can still get countered. Like, he's not used all of the time in the draft format, because tanks do have a lot of counter plays in the draft kind of scenario. He doesn't need like a nerf to his movement speed, because I think that's one of the key things about him. Like, without it, I think he'll just be utterly trash. So yeah, that star power 100% needs nerf. Okay, so next up on the nerf list we have Janet. She's easily the best brawler, well, one of the best brawlers within the game right now, but definitely the most flexible one, in the sense you can literally go her in every single map, every single mode, and always get value out of it. So again, I'll go down the route of nerfing that gadget. That radius is just crazy. So either removing like the radius, making it a lot smaller, or making the base HP of the gadget like 1000. That would be a nice change straight away. And one thing that I find really annoying about Janet is that she has such an annoying just shot mechanic, right? You can easily funnel it with the star power, make it really easy to hit at long ranges, and it also does a lot of damage for its kind of mechanics, right? So you either got to nerf the damage a little bit just so it doesn't pack as much as a punch, because it's just so easy to hit those shots, or just like the route they took with Griff, where his other star power was always better, maybe baseline, make it a little bit faster to kind of charge up that vocal shot, and then nerf like the star powers, just so the other star power is actually usable. So if you get what I mean, just what they did with Griff, how they balanced out the star powers, I think they should do this with Janet. Okay, so next up on the nerf list we have Ruffs. So you guys might be a little bit surprised by this one, but I think Ruffs right now has so many options in terms of utility. I think he's a little bit too strong. So that's because of his wall break mechanics with his star power, the ability to soak up loads of damage with his sandbags, the ability to pressure people with his other gadget. Just overall his damage is pretty consistent, right? Just so many different things about him just make him the ultimate utility brawler, and you can just pretty much use him everywhere. So for me, I would nerf him in a few ways. So the first one would be nerfing his air superiority star power. So you guys might be a little bit confused by this one, but I just think that his star power is incredibly cheesy. You can break open so much of the map, specifically if you cycle multiple supers. I think it just counters too many different archetypes, specifically tanks, right? Tanks just get absolutely destroyed right now in the meta, and this star power just breaks open the map a little bit too much. It's not the only gadget that can actually build up back walls is Jackie's, and that's just terrible. So yeah, too many brawlers can break open walls, so I think this star power just needs to be nerfed a little bit, just so it doesn't destroy as much terrain. Or they could go down the route of just basically making his super not actually increase the stats as much. I think it increases it by 20%, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. So just turn it down a little bit so your teammates don't get buffed as much. Okay, so next up on the nerf list we have Colette. So I think this gadget is in desperate need of a nerf. You would say there's other stronger brawlers in the game like Poco, for example, but I think Colette's gadget is too much of a problem. Look, it's by far the better gadget, and it's just so toxic in 1v1 scenarios where Colette is actually really strong against other brawlers, right? Colette should normally just be a brawler that counters tanks mainly, like at least put up a fight against other brawlers, right? But right now she's completely dominating the meta, specifically in the Power League draft system, where you can pretty much just use a Colette to counter everything. That gadget is way too strong, so it steals, I believe, 80% of the enemy's health. I think it should be around the 60% mark. Like, it's a little bit too toxic. Maybe if it can find a way to buff the other gadget as well, but definitely nerfing this gotcha gadget would be a great start. Okay, and finally on the nerf list we have Penny. So trying to target the brawlers that are just really good everywhere, because it's pretty hard to counter these brawlers in a draft format. So same goes with Penny. Penny is a brawler which you can pretty much go at the beginning of a draft on so many different modes and maps, and I can't quite pinpoint the main reason why she's just so strong against everything. Well, she has like a really strong turret, good gadget against aggro brawlers, and really easy just to hit consistent shots with, right? So I think one thing I'd actually nerf about her, which you guys might really not like this opinion, but I think that she needs a nerf in her supercharge rate, right? So before, like 5 hits, it used to be really hard to build up that super, but ever since they changed the projectile speed, you just get your super basically all of the time. So I think just making it so it takes an extra hit might make Penny a little bit worse off in the meta. I don't think it'll nowhere near kill her, but I just think there should be other options in the meta rather than just going like Penny everywhere. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what buffs and nerfs you would do if you were Supercell with this new whenever the new balance changes are coming out. But I think these are the main ones that need addressing. Of course, there's other brawlers that are really stronger and other brawlers that are really weaker, but I just think these are the main ones that I can think of, in my opinion, on which ones I would like to see the most. Of course, you know, there's brawlers like Poco, for example, who's just completely broken. There's other brawlers as well which haven't had a love in a long time, you know, like Colt, for example. I could have definitely gave some buff ideas for him, maybe like decrease his reload speed. You've got Sandy as well. Sandy's use rate is right down the competitive right now, and I think since the vision gear came out as well, it's just made Sandy really bad. So maybe just increasing Sandy's supercharge rate might be a great start as well. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.